votes for Elliot. Woo!
Right, just before I properly start and tell you what on earth I'm actually going to be talking about, can I get someone at the back to start a stopwatch? And I want everyone mentally to take a bet on how long this hat's staying on my head throughout the talk and how far into this 30 minutes I'm going to manage to get with this on. Because this is my first time presenting at a conference. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. And just to kind of help leave nerves, I always had a thing with my mates that if you're feeling stressed, you put on something a bit more colourful, something just to brighten up the mood. So we always got out lays and just a bit of lay just really helped.
Beautiful.
Make everything better. So I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about and then go into conference and all the usual stuff. So overclocking sunflowers. So what on or in Earth I'm actually going to be talking about. So just how machinery moves with electrical, we all know that machinery moves through electrical signals. And so an Arduino might control these electrical signals just the same way that we move through electrical signals. Those controlled by our brain. But to further extend this, we also know that we don't need an Arduino for things to move. We can entirely, with no chips, no anything, just have the electricity doing a much simpler circuit. And this is what we find in plants a lot of the time. Plants are able to move out brains, so this is, largely speaking, a thought experiment, kind of talking through whether or not it's possible to use living plants and just things that are around us. And maybe if we're sitting in front of computers all day and are completely, surrounded by screens, having a wee plant really helps with your mental health, really helps a lot of things like this. But can we actually use it as a form of multi-factor authentication? So there's a question that I'm hopefully going to be answering for you guys today. And so here's kind of what I'm going to be going through. All the questions on your mind will be answered. Am I mad? Of course, the obligatory who am I? How I actually came up with this idea, how you'd actually go about measuring it, and the next step, what we could actually do today if we really wanted and we had the right tools, what we could get set up in probably a couple of hours if we really tried. So who am I? I'm Elliot, sometimes known as CyberCoo. I'm part of the Edinburgh Napier Cybersecurity Society. I'm the Vice President this year, was President last year. Right now I'm interning with National Grid as a SOAR engineer, and I absolutely love bad ideas. As you can maybe tell from this talk, I love what we can actually learn from bad ideas. I don't believe that they are useless. That bad ideas can really help us in numerous ways. We've taken this idea, me and a few of my friends from Edinburgh Napier and Glasgow, and those are the other Scottish unis, and we've created a thing we like to call Seasides, which we call it's bad talks by good students, where you do purposely bad talks about bad ideas. And you just need to try and get it to work just to boost your confidence speaking. And also, I'm a lover of very high quality, very smart, sophisticated puns, as you may or may not see throughout. And of course, I'm very prepared and would never, for example, the night before this talk, be sitting in a pub, finishing off my PowerPoint. I wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't. Also, what I definitely wouldn't do is, I definitely wouldn't be sitting up the back like at lunch and stuff, just still editing and making sure that, like, not even naming my presentation so it might get lost, just leaving it as something. I wouldn't do that. I'm very organised and I wouldn't leave anything until the last second, right? So, first question on your mind: am I mad? So the idea of using plants for things that aren't necessarily what you would usually use them for, not normal biology and all that, is not necessarily uncommon. There's things about like modern biology. I don't know if any of you have seen this guy. Like this is a real fun guy. Like right. Some of you might have missed it there, but that was actually one of my smart puns. And I can don't worry, this is for all levels. So just to make sure, I feel like I should warn you all, so you know a pun's coming, just so you know you can prepare yourself, or you know to laugh, so you don't feel left out. Tell you what, why don't we do something like, we'll put a pun warming up. So we'll have this guy come up, let's say in bottom left hand corner, yeah. For you guys, just anytime I'm about to say a pun, just so you know to warn yourself, and then like, oh yeah, it's the bumblebee. It just gets worse from here, guys. This is entirely what my talk is. So we'll try this again. We'll be like, am I mad? Well, there's modern biology. Really interesting guy. Talks a lot about the psychology behind it, as well as not only he basically plugs his synthesizer into living plants and uses the electrical signals from there to create music. Really, really interesting. This would be nice to have. I'll stick this a bit in there. And you get things like this come from mushrooms, so it's quite a fun guy. But yeah, there's other people who do things like this. You've got Greg Greer, who did a whole TED talk about it, just kind of going over things like Venus flytraps and the mimosa plant, not to be confused with the drink, which are both moving plants. So as we all know, Venus flytraps close their mouth, and the mimosa plant, also known as the sensitive plant, closes its petals over whenever you touch it. This creates a really easy to detect electrical signal. So Action Lab's also done a few things like this. This guy from YouTube, which is actually where I first came up with the idea. So, I mean, let's see. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, I'm mad, but I'm not the only one. So, where did this idea come from? Because as we go through this journey, I think it's really important that we remember our roots throughout this. So, as I said, Action Lab did where they hooked up a sensitive plant to a Venus flytrap, and when they touched the sensitive plant, the Venus flytrap actually closed, because you're able to send the electrical signals on, and you're able to measure it. Looks something like this. And so the question became clear in my mind, where it was like, well, if we had enough sensitive plants together, you've got basically a binary system. You've got open or closed. Is it sending out an electrical signal or isn't it? And if you've just got some bit of non-volatile memory to remember that, could you make an entire computer out of sensitive plants? Now, I'm not smart enough to actually build that up in my mind or anything like that, but maybe I can make it more cybersecurity related and more actually tangible, something useful almost. So the first question, which was one I spent so long trying to work out, because every single video about it, everything always was like, yeah, you just plug it in and you go. But, well, okay, so largely speaking, you ground the ground wire, stick that one in there, and then add a voltmeter to it. For things like sensitive plant, this works, because it's a big movement, lots of electricity. Like with humans, when we're actually moving our fingers, when we're moving about, the electrical signals are a lot easier to detect than some of the smaller things firing off in our brain. We can still detect them, but it just adds a bit more complexity to it. So, what is possible right now? So what we've got is we've got a plant that when we touch it, it sends out electrical signal that we can easily detect. And we can do that with each petal, each leaf. Oh, I don't know what there. So we can do that with each petal, with each leaf. So really what we've got is we've got something that we tactilely touch, and then we're able to determine what we've touched through. Well, I mean, really we've got a keyboard, or the very beginnings of a keyboard. All we need to do is, I don't know, find some software that helps with it. So like, just like Rubber Duck, but we want to make this easily. So, well, if we've got an Arduinos have boards in place to build basically bad USBs, and that allows us to really, just with a bit of trial and error, put together a very basic keyboard as it was, and we can use that as a password. So in terms of multi-factor authentication, we've got about 4 different types of authentication, and we need a combination of these to create multi-factor authentication. So we've got things you know, knowledge. What we've created there is something you know. It's a password that you need to know how to operate. You need to know how to operate the plant, and you've got a password. Check. Next type, things you are. The issue with things you are, the plant's not going to prove you are anything. That doesn't really fit into this. But what I'm going to go on to now is things you have in your possession. You own the plant, you've got the plant in your possession. Can we prove it's that plant? And things you do. Now this one's going to be a bit slightly more abstract, but your daily routine might involve watering your plant. It might involve not watering your plant. When you go away on holiday, do you want your plant to still log you in? Well, no, but if we manage to relate it to things you do, surely we should be able to get something that as soon as you go away on holiday, your physical item doesn't work. It's mixing together things you have and things you do. That brings me on to the why, because we've just got a keyboard, we don't have anything useful. But that doesn't mean it's not useful. First of all, it's changing the way we look at plants, potentially. You might all of a sudden come up with a new idea. You might go somewhere else in this. Or you might just learn something that's not too useful, but just a fun novelty. Invite your friends over and go, hey, look, I can log in with my plant. I just need to stick my hand in it. But we could create a lot more secure systems, theoretically, with a plant. But how do we measure this one? Because if we are not using a sensor plant, if we're using a normal one, it's really, really small, tiny electrical signals that we're measuring. So, and really we want to do it over a long period of time, because what we're wanting to do is we want to see if it's normal behaviour, largely speaking. We are seeing if it's the right plant, so we need some signature of the plant. So that's how the plant's electrical signals behave over a long period of time. And we are wanting to know if it's reacting to the outside world differently. So, I can't remember what pun I put in here. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was hoping I would have notes up on this screen, but I didn't set it up for that. So, but we can stick in an oscilloscope. And then we can measure over a long period of time. The issue is, as soon as you've got an oscilloscope measuring, there's background radiation. The oscilloscope helps with it. But really what would be ideal, just for the measuring and like a learning stage to work out what's normal, and just for testing to see if this would be possible, is a Faraday cage would be ideal. Something to just remove electrical. So really what we're wanting to do is, first of all, I'm going to need to build my oscilloscope. Right, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I need to so I'm going to whip out my soldering kit and use it as a few days distraction, so I don't need to actually do things I need to do. Building up my oscilloscope, and then we're here where we've got all this electrical signals round it that it's making it really hard to tell what's the plant, what's not the plant. Yeah, there's ways you can work it out, but it's just, what would really be ideal is if we could just shrink it down. And then if we had some cheap Faraday cage somewhere, like something that's just accessible around the house, like a microwave, exactly, perfect. So if we manage to get it in a microwave and we start measuring it, we get a lot better. And here's where actually a lot of the questions that I don't have the answer to come up in this talk, because it's what the diodes are made out of. Yeah, we've ground one diode and we stuck the other one in the flower. But largely speaking, there's loads of different papers talking about, oh, no, you want to use titanium steel, you want to use glass, you want to use this, you want to use that. And they've all got different properties, they've all got different abilities. So you start looking at that and you go, well, we're going to need to test to see what actually works the best. Which way gives us the greatest indication of what is there. So now what? Really, we're going to need to trial and error. We need to go through loads of different things, try out loads of different plants, see if that works really. And it's largely just because we could, from all the papers, they've shown that outside factors, you watering it, everything, plants react to it. There's plants that sense if a bee's nearby by listening for the sound of the bee fluttering its wings. And if it hears that, it will release more pollen. So that you can measure through the electrical signals to some extent. So all these things show that you, with a well-trained, probably with a well-trained AI, you could create what is normal for a plant and basically create UBA for, so UBA is user behavioral analytics. So just determine whether or not it's the correct plant or whether or not the plant's acting differently. So all of a sudden you go on holiday and you've got Jimmy next door coming in to water your plant. He waters it at a different time of the day than you, this and that. So you've got a real give and take at that point where you're needing to ask, are we wanting to, oh no, I forgot to water my plant today, I can't log in, sorry. Phoning up your work, being like, oh, that's me out today. Or really, are we wanting to be a bit more forgiving? Are we wanting maybe 3 days without watering and then that should cut off? But really, I feel like it would be a really, really good bit. It helps give extra morale. It's something nice around, something nice to look at. But also, we could use it as multi-factor authentication is the point. We could use it that's both something you are, something you have and both something you do. So, yeah, it kind of works. All scientific papers point towards this, even if they haven't put it in these terms. I've got those references afterwards. If anyone's interested, reach out to me, come find me, I can get them to you. So, things you have, things you do, theoretically possible to create an actually useful plant as multi-factor authentication. So, I know you guys are thinking, what does this mean for me? What is my future organization going to look like? So it's going to look like a kind of basic, I've just thrown up some security places here, not necessarily an encompassing one, but just an idea. So then we can remember that maybe in the future we'll have the gardeners with us. Or botanists. Thank you. That was the best one I came up with. I was so happy. It was that and Bumblebee. I was so happy with myself for like 3 days straight after that. So there's also CRISPR, which I'm just going to cover quickly. It was the 2020 Nobel Chemistry Prize. It's genome editing. It's getting to the point where you can have take-home genome editing you can have take-home genome editing kits, which is great, but you've got all issues of, interacting with the outside world. Is it going to damage the ecosystem? Is it all that? I feel like, should we not exhaust what plants can do without genome editing before there's loads of papers about, we could edit it and then it can store our information, it can do that and can do this, and it can do so much right now. We just need to think about it in a different way. We just need a bad idea to bring it all together. So maybe next time you hear hack the planet, you can think of it just slightly more literally. And thank you. That's all. If there's any puns that you are very disappointed I didn't have, please at me on Twitter and use the hashtag Bumblebee. Thank you very much.